Hello and welcome to the Believe You Can podcast. My name is Claire Fishington and I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited you're here. I am a mum to a little girl called Ruby. I have a background in musical theatre and acting. I run my own online business and I'm so excited to be your host for this podcast because I'm all focused about transformation, overcoming obstacles, building self-esteem and confidence, and just knowing that you, if you put your mind to it and you believe that you can achieve anything. Hello everyone. Oh my gosh, I'm literally buzzing right now. I'm so excited and honoured. So we have Belle on the podcast today. She's one of my dear friends and she's just an inspiration in so many ways, from a mental health perspective. She's got a podcast called Vulnerability Rocks. And what I love so much about you, Em, is that you are just open, honest. You talk in the moment about what's going on in your life and completely share from the heart. And I hope you know that what you're doing, how much you're helping and inspiring people with that, it's just amazing. And I just see you. I can't wait till your podcast got 10 million downloads because I know that's going to happen. So go make sure, first of all, you go follow Emma Belle and Vulnerability Rocks for her podcast as well. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love seeing your little face.
Oh, it's so nice. So I'm over in Essex. Em's living in Dubai.
I'm in Dubai, yeah, and it's sun's just gone down, so I'm coming into my evening now.
Amazing. What a transition like that is. It's funny, actually, I interviewed my friend Hayley on my last podcast. She moved to Dubai, lived in Dubai for about 5 years, came back, was an author, and like that was all interesting. It just suddenly hit me. It's like everyone I'm going to interview might be living in Dubai, but I've never been to Dubai. Right? Let's just go on that thing. And you just look like you live the life of. It's just amazing. It's so nice.
It's a wonderful place to live. Like, I love living here, and I lived in Switzerland for 4 years before here. But I love living in Dubai. It's a great mix of everything, and there's so many different people from so many different countries, so many different cultures. It's such a mixed bag of amazing human beings that it's just a lovely place to be. So yeah, I mean, I love it here. I'm from Brighton. I'm a Brighton girl, but I love it here.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I love Brighton too.
I know. I miss it.
Oh, no. There's such a. I actually moved to Essex in Leigh-on-Sea, and I feel like the reason I live by the sea is because of my time in Brighton. I just loved it so much. It's just the best. It's just got such a great vibe, isn't it? So yeah. So let's go back to like. Mental health is something that I'm so passionate about, and I speak about it really openly now, which is something that you've inspired me to do genuinely. The way that you are so open about your mental health and bipolar and everything like that. Like, I've actually never been diagnosed with anything, and I think maybe that's something I need to delve into a little bit. That'll be a bit of personal development on my part, but I just would love the audience just to hear from your perspective, like your feelings and views on mental health and the tools and tricks that you kind of use to kind of get you out of situations that, might not be in a positive, when you're not in a positive space and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, I live with bipolar. I was diagnosed 10 years ago. The truth is I was misdiagnosed / undiagnosed for over a decade. So I was probably first affected by it when I was about 15 years old, when I presented to the doctors thinking I had depression. I got put on an antidepressant, which when you give someone that's got bipolar an antidepressant sends you sky high. So I then ended up star-shaped, flat on my back in front of a bus in the middle of a very small town, causing chaos. And my friend was quickly like, I don't think you should be taking these. And I just, from that point, all that taught me was medication's scary and I shouldn't take it because it brings more harm to my life than good. So the next 10 or more years went really in a very chaotic fashion, and there were other factors going on as well, but bipolar definitely was an undercurrent that was making the waves of an already chaotic life even more chaotic. So the waves were going higher and lower than they would have been, because I had this undercurrent of an undiagnosed mental illness. And then I just got busier and busier and busier over time. I didn't need any sleep. I would, I don't know, sleep just a few hours a night. I'd get up in the morning and work out at 5 a.m. and then I would work all the way around till like midnight, 1 a.m. in the morning, go back to sleep, get another 4 hours. There was no downtime, 7 days a week. I had, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 different hats, jobs, roles. And on the outside, unfortunately to society, it looks like a really positive thing, because it looks like you're smashing it. It looks like you're conquering the world. Behind closed doors, the symptoms were manifesting as mania, hypermania and mania. And yes, it all sounds very good that you can do all these things at 1,000,000 miles an hour and your thoughts are really quick. And I used to think everyone else was too slow. I used to think, God, these people are so slow. Why don't they get it? Why can't they keep up? What's wrong with you? You're so stupid. Oh my God, you're so slow. Like, get with it. Bang, 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 click, click, click. And I'm like,
I'm laughing because this is me, right? This is
I know.
me.
I know, but I've done like 10 projects and they're all still like there in the wake of my destruction going, what, we're on project number 1. What are you talking about? And I'm like, whatever. And in my head, I'm thinking, why is the world so slow? Like, what is wrong with people? So I genuinely believed that people were lazy. People didn't know what they were doing. They obviously weren't smart enough because they couldn't keep up. The truth was my thoughts were racing and I was running and running so fast. Nobody could have caught me up. I had like the brain of Limpid Christie. It was crackers. And it was crackers. But I didn't understand. And I kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And then I had 3 people die who I cared about, very quick succession, a lot of stress with the business that I'd kind of taken on with staff. And I had a massive fallout with my dad. And this is what I now know about mental illness. It is triggered by life stresses. So it can be there as an undercurrent and you can manage. And then life stresses will happen and bang, you get really, really poorly because it's already there. You're just kind of riding the wave of being unwell most of the time. So anyway, so this all happened and literally I went from being like some type of superhero character who actually got quite aggressive and quite short, quite difficult to be around, quite difficult to communicate with, wouldn't listen to anyone else's point of view. My way was the right way or the highway. You know, that's what happens when you get into hypomania and it tips over into agitation and not being able to sleep and racing thoughts and scattered thinking. And, you know, so you go from being like in this sweet spot of like super productive, acing it, to then you start to get unwell. So overnight, I just stopped, like bang, like a light switch, didn't get out of bed, could not get out of bed, became completely suicidal, started trying to act on those suicidal thoughts. I remember waking up in the morning thinking, I'd go to bed at night, and I'm not religious, but I'd go to bed at night and I would pray with every ounce of my being that when my eyes shut, that would be the last time they opened. And I would beg anyone to just put me out of this pain because I just couldn't escape it. And because I had tried medication when I was younger, I was terrified of going to the doctor because I thought, no, I know what happens. Tablets make me worse. So I'm not doing that again. I've learned my lesson. So I tried everything: crystal healing, color therapy. I was walking around with blue glasses on, orange glasses on, yellow glasses on, this glasses, that, you name it, I tried it. But the truth was, maybe if I'd done a few of those things a bit earlier on, it would have given me some relief. But I was too unwell. I'd had a complete breakdown.
Yeah.
And lost like everything, really. So 6 months went past. I did everything I could to fix it. And eventually my friend said, come on, this is not okay. You need to get help, you know, because I'd gone to the sea to try and drown myself. It was all getting totally out of hand. And so I went to the doctors. They put me on a different antidepressant because I said, don't put me on that one, whatever you do, because I'll end up out in front of a bus again, because that's what I'd learned, right? And that's all we can ever judge on, is what we think we know from what we've learned, until we learn something different.
Yeah.
So put me on this antidepressant, and within a week, the benefit of having bipolar is an antidepressant will work really, really quickly. So within a week and a bit, I suddenly went sky high again. So I felt really good. I was up. I went and did some event management at festivals. I was buzzing, like, feeling good again.
Yeah.
And I went completely sky high. And then the full-blown mania kicked in, and I became completely paranoid. So I thought that people were spying on me. I was convinced people were spying on me. I had people outside. I lived in an apartment block at the time, and there were people painting the windows. They were there genuinely. They were painters, right? I know that now. If you're listening to this, painters, I am sorry. Right. So they were outside. I'm so sorry. So they were outside painting the windows, and they were just doing their job, minding their own business, clearly. However, in a paranoid mind, when you're in full-blown mania, I kept the curtains shut for 2 weeks. I didn't wash for 2 weeks. I didn't sleep pretty much for 2 weeks. I might have got an hour here and there. I was up all through the night. I was convinced I was working. I was telling people I was working. And I was convinced that these painters weren't painters, they were spies. And they'd been sent to spy on me every day. So, and here's the thing, right? They probably were in the end coming to have a look to see what the crazy lady was going to do today, because I was that lady coming out the curtains shouting, "Don't you spy on me, you get out." I won't swear on here, but you get out, all the rest of it you can imagine, right? I was that crazy lady with my head hanging out the window, not washed for 2 weeks, looking like crazy town. That was me. And so in the end, they probably were coming to see what the crazy lady was going to do that day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the truth.
They probably couldn't help it by that point.
No, they're probably like, wonder what she's going to, what's she going to do today?
Yeah.
Wonder what that crazy lady's going to say today. So, anyway, my friend then came back round, and she says, and I don't remember this, but she tells me that I was in the dark, shuffling paper from place to place, place to place, place to place, place to place, like words like not even making much sense. And she literally took me by the arm. She said, "This is not okay. We have to go. This is not depression on its own." Right. And depression on its own is a horrible thing. Don't get me wrong. When you're low, it's dreadful. However, there's more to this than depression, Emma.
Yeah.
So I went and got assessed and got diagnosed with bipolar, got put on a mood stabilizer, and my whole life changed. Because guess what? When you've got bipolar, a mood stabilizer is actually helpful because it manages both ends of the mood, top and bottom. So it took me 2 or 3 years to stabilize, because by this point I'd got myself so unwell that, it took me a long time to get well. So the truth is I was on heavy medication for a good 2 or 3 years. But what it did do is it gave me the space to think clearly again, so that I could go and get therapy, so that I could go and get help and start to work out how to build a toolkit to keep myself well.
Yeah.
And that's taken me 10 years to do. But
how you show up, and what, and what I just find so inspiring about you is the openness about it. And the thing for me is all what you're saying. It's like I'm with you in the story, right? Because I've experienced those things, and actually my dad has got bipolar and hypomania. I think he had a hypomania, and now that he was just diagnosed with bipolar, although he's still in the denial phase of that he's got bipolar. And actually, you just saying something about the medication side of things. Sorry, I've gone on a tangent now, but it just as point of view there is that he had a bad experience with medication. And so therefore we go on this kind of roller coaster of him having medication, and then he goes backwards and doesn't want it, wants it. When he feels better, he stops taking it. And then, we're in that kind of cycle. But it's interesting, isn't it? When you're saying about, I got to a point where there was no way back for me. Like I had to do something. Like I had to take medication, and I had this stigma about medication, not from a personal experience of it, but just from what will people think, will I be on this forever? Those kind of things. And I think that being open about, taking medication, it definitely helped me. Like it definitely did. I was lucky in the sense that I probably got put on the right medication for at that time for me. But I just think that all of the things that we probably delve into now, the holistic side of well-being and all of those things, I just wish I knew them then. But at the same time, you kind of have to experience the things that you do to get you to this point where you're open to those things
and
as well.
And also I think it's about capacity. So when you are very, very unwell, here's what I believe. So I have a big toolkit of how to keep myself well. One of those tools is medication. Now, when I was first unwell, my only tool was medication because I didn't know any other way. But the truth is, it saved my life.
Yeah, same.
And I am absolutely grateful that it exists, because without it, I would definitely be dead. That is for sure. So but it's true.
I know that
it's true, but I am full of gratitude for the fact it exists.
100%, me too. 100%.
And that it's an option, and that we are privileged enough we come from countries privileged enough to have access to this medical and scientific help that otherwise, if we didn't have, I wouldn't be here today. So
absolutely. Same for me, because if I'd have let the stigma of what it was my own stigma, really, which is so silly, because I delayed as well. I delayed taking it. Someone in my life at the time actually didn't want me to take it because of their views as well. So the mixture of my views and their views, but that it set me back, put me in such a worse situation because I didn't take action on it when I was advised to by the doctor,
Correct. And it's no different to having a broken leg.
Yeah.
Right. So do you know what blows my mind? It blows my mind that the organ that we know the least about, we refuse to believe can get sick. People refuse to believe that the organ we know the least about can get sick. Now, just pause this, rewind this, everyone, and play it again.
Yeah.
Because it blows my mind. Now, if I came to you and went, Claire, I've been told I've got a problem with my heart, I'm not sure whether to take the heart medication or not,
I'd be like, babe, what are you even thinking? I wouldn't even know what the medication is. I wouldn't even know the side effects. I'd be like, what? Of course you're going to take it, would be my answer.
Yes.
So you're so right.
And here's the next thing, right? But we know more about hearts than we know about brains.
Yeah.
But we know less about brains than we do about hearts, but we're less accepting of the fact the brain can get sick, yet we know the least about it as an organ. Go figure. So here's the next thing. Wow. If you've got a broken leg and it's visibly broken and someone comes to you and goes, do you know what? I've just broken my leg. Do you tell them to go and have a run? No. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just go for a run.
Go for a run, you'll be fine.
That'll fix it. You just got to get out running again.
Oh, I know. That's what I couldn't, for me, that was one of the, you'll be all right. Don't worry about it. Just crack on. Just, you're Claire, your personality is amazing. Like, I was like, I can't just crack on. Like, there's something gone. Something's happened in my brain. There's a chemical problem. Like, I knew there was.
And it's like, right. So say you break your leg and for X amount of months, you can't walk or run. They take the cast off. And you're not going to get up and go and run a marathon straight away. You're going to need some physio. You're going to need some pain relief. You're going to need some time to remember how to use all the muscles, all the things all around it. Now, when we have been in a state of mental unwell for a long period of time, like anything else, we kind of forget how to be well as well.
Yeah.
So we need a bit of support to help us remember how to do it for ourselves. So to me, medication for me was like that stabilization. It was like, you don't have to do this all on your own. A bit like if you broke your leg, right? You can go to physio, you can have some pain relief, you can have a crutch.
Yeah.
While we help you figure out how to run again.
It's funny, isn't it, that it's so, you just saying that is like a lightning bolt, and I'm sure everyone else listening, it will be the same. It's like we always see the physical things, but just the thing about the the organ, the thing that we know the least about, we
refuse to believe it can get sick.
Yeah.
But then if I say to you brain and heart, all of a sudden your mindset shifts around that. You believe a heart can get sick.
Yeah. And from a personal experience, I know, like, for me, I've got this awareness about myself. Like although I've gone undiagnosed, and like I said, maybe you've just made me really think about the fact that I probably need to look at that, because I understand myself a lot. I know my kind of trigger points, but I definitely live in the manic side of life, like super focused, whether it's, entrepreneurial, like I follow this woman called Shalene Johnson. She talks about entrepreneurial ADD. And when you live in that, you can be really successful. But obviously there comes with the things of like, I'm the person that leaves my keys. I have no idea. I walk in the door, put my keys down. I've got no idea where the keys are. Like, it's like comedy to most people. And I'm the person that mid-conversation, I'm a conversation ahead. I'm like, how have they not heard what I just said? But I haven't actually spoken it out loud. You know what I mean? Like,
I do.
So yeah. And everyone around me is like, I understand. I know you, Claire, like, it's fine. But actually, like, going back to looking at myself, like, and maybe the people that are listening to this, if you're experiencing some of these things, obviously it's just good to speak up about things. My big thing is speaking up, because if I hadn't have spoken up about what was going on for me, I personally think that, plus the support, the counselling and the medication, I would have been too consumed with my thoughts that I wouldn't be here today either. And I'm so grateful that we now today, like, the awareness is, I know this has been something that you've been really, like, from grassroots. You're now working with is Bipolar, the
grassroots is suicide prevention, and then I'm now an ambassador for Bipolar UK,
which is amazing. You've always been this kind of advocate for mental health and well-being, but for me, just like seeing the growth in the awareness. There is much more awareness, like even to 10 years ago in the world, isn't there? Which is such a positive thing, but it needs to be more. It needs to be more.
And that's the biggest lesson that I think I've learned from my mental illness journey, and learning how to manage my mental health to be mentally well, is that nothing good has ever come from me pretending that I'm okay. It's the biggest lesson I've ever learned, is that when the minute I start pretending I'm okay, and I don't mean pretending to be someone I'm not, just pretending to be okay, painting on that smile, painting on that face, really, when I'm really not okay, all it does is crush you inside, and you go further and further into this like hole, and you get harder and harder for people to get to, which means that it's harder and harder for people to help you. And it's harder and harder to ask for help too. And it's exhausting. The truth is, it's exhausting. So the minute you just say, do you know what, for me, I was like, do you know what, just blow the lid on the lot. This is who I am. This is how it is. Take me as you find me. I'll always do my best. I'm never going to be hard on myself anymore if I'm having a hard day. And I won't say a bad day, I'll say a hard day, because some days are easier and some days are harder.
Yeah.
Neither one makes me a good or a bad person. That's taken me a long time to be able to say that to myself. Just because I'm having a day filled with harder emotions does not make me a bad person, does not make me a failure. I'm a good person no matter what happens. And you take me as you find me.
Oh God, that's really just hit me, because sorry, I was just like blown all over the microphone. That's really just hit me, because when I was in my like real dark times, that's all what kept running. I'm such a bad person. I'm such a bad person. That's all I could think. Like, and I think that if someone just being able to identify that there's peaks and valleys, and that those peaks and valleys come in a day, like, especially for someone that's suffering with mental health problems, and that that it's just hard. It's not that you're bad, and it's that association of knowing that in our brain. I just think that there's that voice, isn't there? There's that voice that says, I always talk about it with a chocolate cake. go on, Claire, eat the chocolate. Eat the chocolate cake. And you're like, oh, I'm going to eat the chocolate cake. You eat the chocolate cake. It's like, why did you eat the chocolate cake the minute after you've eaten it? And it's like that voice that's unkind to us. It doesn't.
The biggest bully in the room normally is ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Especially as we come into adulthood, unless we're obviously in an abusive relationship or something like that. And then, of course, you know, the biggest bully is normally our abuser. But if we are in a safe space, I guarantee you 90% of the time, the biggest bully in the room is you.
Yeah, 100%.
And, but it runs deeper than that. I think it's more about, think about it. Okay. I was talking about this with Gareth just the other day, and I was saying, don't you think it's mad, right, that probably 90% of us have been taught to pretend from such a young age? As an example, so say you're a baby, right? Before you can even speak, mum's got you, or dad's got you, or someone's got you, and you've been smiley and cooey, and you haven't cried, and you've had you've been a cooey little baby for 3 hours, and you get a big beaming smiling face that you go, oh, you're such a good baby. You've been so good. You haven't cried all day. Just an example.
Yeah.
Right. And then guess what? Baby's up all night, mum's tired, whatever. And this is not blame. It's just an awareness thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, and even if it's said nicely, you've been such a naughty baby. You kept me awake all night, been crying all night.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so before we can even speak, we've been told that when we're happy, we're good. And when we're sad, we're naughty. Just because we showed how we felt, right? So it's just an example. Just hear me out.
It's so important. And I have to be aware of this with Ruby all the time, because you don't mean to, because it's inbuilt in you from when you're a kid, right? What was said to you. But it's so true.
So it's just an example of how before we've even been able to verbalize our feelings, that we are met with language like good and bad, polarized, right? Which we internalize as, I am a good person for feeling happy, or I'm a bad person because I felt sad.
Yeah.
And it just manifests. So therefore, as we come up and we get older, when we are having difficult, big, overwhelming emotions, we automatically tell ourselves, I'm a bad person because I can't smile today.
Yeah.
Rather than, I am a good person who's having a difficult day.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah, it's interesting, because I feel like what I've, like you saying that, and what I've learned being with Ruby, she's 3.5, so she's going through some tricky emotions, that your natural instinct sometimes is like, why are you doing that? Why are you being naughty? Like, and you have to like zip it in and just being, how, I know you're finding this difficult. I know you're finding this hard. Like, you've got these overwhelming feelings, and the difference of reaction that you get from her is like a completely different experience. Because that, if you say you're naughty or anything like that, it goes like 10 times.
Well, it's judgment,
someone's feelings, and you acknowledge where she's at, she openly communicates about it, and there's that space for her to speak, rather than her go off on,
But people like our age, and older, and even a generation younger, typically, I mean, emotional awareness is a huge thing, and it's becoming more and more prevalent now, and people are talking about it and understanding the importance of it. There's no bad or blame in any of this. It's just to understand, where did this narrative come from?
Yeah.
And the truth is, 90% of us have been brought up in environments where we have unconsciously been told that when we're happy, we are good people, and when we are sad, we're bad people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just through language. It's not any malice. It's not.
No.
It's just the way it is, right? So when we can unpick that and go, oh, that's where that's coming from, then we can start to go a bit easier on ourselves, right? And we can start to say to the bully in the room, which is normally us, actually, no, I'm not a bad person. I'm a really good person. I'm just having a really tough day.
Yeah.
And that feels different straight away.
Totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like, just the things that you're saying, like, just so, like, for me, I'm having like light bulb moments over here, because the Esmeralda is what I call my voice in my head.
I love you've named it.
Yeah. I read a book called The Chimp Paradox, and it talks about the chimp is that side of your brain. And he says in it, Steve Peters, the author, says, like, name your chimp. So mine's Esmeralda. I'm like, come on, Esmeralda. I don't do it in public because it would look like I was going, Esmeralda, shut up, you know.
My friend's daughter went to therapy. She went to therapy young. She had some therapy she needed to do, and the therapist asked her to name hers, and she was very young when she did it, and she said she called it Spike, and she said, because it's spiky and it's mean and it says things that hurt me, so I'm going to call it Spike. So she calls it a Spike narrative.
Oh wow. Oh my
God. Like, how clever.
Yeah And but it is, isn't it? That's such a good name. I don't know what made me call mine Esmeralda. It was quite comedy. I see her with this like gorgeous dark hair. She's a bit Spanish and she's got like an edge.
I love it.
I always wanted to look like that. Like, I mean, I'm ginger. I'm like, I just want to be like, you know,
Esmeralda.
So she's good sometimes. When she comes out sometimes, she's quite good. Oh, don't.
I love it.
If I start laughing with you, I don't think I'll recover. Oh dear. Isn't it wonderful to laugh?
Oh, it is.
So good. So good. So so with all what you're doing, like, how amazing that you're working with, are you still working with Grassroots now?
No, so I did volunteering work with them years ago and did some training with them on suicide prevention under the assist model and safe talk. And now I'm ambassador for Bipolar UK, which I'm so excited about it, because after I got diagnosed with bipolar, I didn't know anybody with bipolar. And I really had this belief that no one else was going to understand. I didn't know anyone. Anyway, so Bipolar UK had like a local peer support group, and I went along and I had all these sort of crazy thoughts, you know, that I daren't share with anyone, because I thought, God, if I share these with people, I'll end up locked up, you know, and I was genuinely a bit fearful of that. And so I went into this group and I sat and listened to other people's shares, you know, around the room, and I started to think, oh yeah, maybe these people do get it. And then I shared some of my thoughts, crazy kind of thoughts, and some of the crazy things that I had done when I'd been very unwell. And I just looked around the room and there was people just like nodding, going, yeah, happens. I get it. And those 3 words, I get it, so powerful for shedding shame, because there's so much shame that you do feel when you feel like you are not normal, in air quotes, or like other people, and you tend to look outside and you tend to look and you think, well, they seem to be okay, why can't I be okay? Like, why can't I just function normally like them? I don't understand, you know, because that's all you want, is to have a normal life. Not that normal really exists, but you know what I mean. So to sit in a room where people just went, yeah, I get it, been there, and I was like, wow, I have found my tribe. And I was so relieved. And I just walked out of there like I'd shed concrete from my shoulders, you know, like, I'm not on my own. There's people that get this. And guess what? I'm not in bad company either. And these are good people sat in that room, you know, decent human beings. I don't need to be frightened of this. And I can, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And I remember looking at the group leader and thinking, you know, you seem to have it together, like, so maybe one day I can have it together, you know. And it's inspiring, it's comforting, it helps you to just shed shame and not feel bad, feel like you're a bad person, to kind of normalize and humanize what you're going through. So to now be 10 years later able to give back in the space that helped me is just an absolute honor, really.
Oh, it's so amazing, because for me, that's one of the things that I sort of didn't have, and I didn't reach out to anybody. I sort of dealt with the shame of the thoughts that I was experiencing with my family, who sort of they were sort of just like, I think people around me sometimes like made stuff up at the time, you know, like to think I wasn't
try and make you feel better.
Yeah. like literally like stuff that was quite traumatic, but I know it wasn't real because they were just like, they didn't know how. They didn't know how to, like, you know, and you know,
desperately trying to give you what you needed.
And you know, like, it must have been for I mean, the trauma that I must have put my mum through, like, and the people around you. So to have that, you know, to have that with other people, that that you go, oh my God, that acknowledgement. It's so good that you're giving back. Like, that's what I see you doing so much of, Em. And that's why I can't encourage you guys more just to go and follow Emma on social media and her podcast. And then you've recently set up another Instagram, haven't you, for
TFMR Mamas,
which is so amazing.
I mean, that's super current. I know. I just know the power of group. I know the power of, and how empowered you can be, despite how painful something it may be that you're going through, when you are side by side with people who just nod and get it.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly healing. It can completely transform how you handle and process really difficult times, experiences. And here's the thing, like, there's a group for everything. No matter what it is that you're going through in life that you feel is massive, and you sit there and tell yourself, no one else is going through this. There is.
There is.
There is.
Yeah.
And you will find it. And the beauty now with, you know, the internet and all of that, you know, the groups, the social media platforms, it's so accessible for free. Usually, often so much free support out there. And all you've got to do is search the words of your problem, and you will find a support group somewhere, I promise you. And the best thing you will ever do for yourself is going in and sitting side by side, because you will never be made to feel less than when you're in a peer group of people that understand your stuff.
Yeah.
And when you sit side by side, it's empowering, and you can see different people at different levels in their journey, and everyone helps everyone. Everyone has a vital role to play. And hence why TFMR Mamas I created, because I, you know, after 5 rounds of fertility treatment last year, I got pregnant, and very sadly got to the NT scan and got told that my baby was poorly, then had my genetic results back and got told that our baby had Edwards syndrome and a 1 in 50,000 chance of making it to a live birth. So I could carry on carrying my baby and wait for it to die inside me on the hope that I might have a live birth. And if I had a live birth, I had an even slimmer chance of that baby making it past a few hours/days old, and it wouldn't come home. It would be on high intensive care support, or you're talking 1 in millions of chances of the baby making it past 1 year old and actually growing to an infant. So, you know, I had to terminate for medical reasons, and I had to fly back from Dubai because I can't have that done here in the way that I wanted. I would have had to be forced to carry the baby for another however many weeks and then labour awake. And for me, I didn't want that. Didn't want to labour a dead baby. So for me, that was my choice. Everyone makes their choices very differently, but for me, it wasn't what I felt was the right choice for me. So I wanted to be asleep. So we flew back, and I had a surgical termination for medical reasons, and I went to sleep pregnant, just under 14 weeks pregnant, and woke up and my baby was gone. So
I'm so I know we've spoken about this before, but I'm so sorry. Like,
I know
it. Yeah, there aren't
it's
really
crap.
Yeah. And I know, like, before you knew, like, the outcome of what your baby had at the time, we spoke, didn't we? Because I had when Ruby was 20 weeks, and this is something I think is really important to speak about, actually, because I was a bit clueless, to be honest. Even though Rob's mum was a midwife, I knew that the scans were for medical reasons, right? They're to check what is the situation with the baby. But everyone especially, it's made me gone cold, the 20-week scan, everyone goes in, it's about the sex and all of those sorts of things. But even the 12-week scan, it's just, I'm going to see the baby and all of that. But really, I wish I knew more that was, this is what this is. This is to check this, like this is to see the genetics of your baby, because Ruby came back at 20 weeks and she had a ventricular megaly, which basically means she had a growth, like a space in her brain that they were unhappy with. And it turned out for my situation that it actually corrected itself, and she's happy and well and everything like that. But for the rest of my pregnancy, that 20 weeks, it was consistent scans. It was, you know, but I just wish I knew that. And I don't know if anyone needed to hear that today about the fact that, I don't know.
It's not to scare people either, right?
It's not. It's just
to
know
understand the full reasoning for why scans are done. Yes, there are the lovely parts where you skip out with a scan, and absolutely everybody deserves to have all of those moments. But there is also a very real requirement and reason for timing of scans, and it's because of the development of your baby at so many weeks gestation. And certain anomalies can correct themselves and some can't. You know, if it's a genetic diagnosis, they don't correct themselves because it is what it is. If it's an organ anomaly, they can correct themselves sometimes. But these scans come at certain times because at certain times they expect to see XYZ has fully developed in this way, in this presentation, you know. So but it's hard, isn't it? It's difficult.
I know because it's like you know, I don't know, it just for me, it's just having an open, it's having that knowledge that, you know, that, because I think people could, I don't know, were you, from your perspectives, did you go, because you were going through fertility treatment, I guess there's a different awareness, isn't there, to someone like myself that I got pregnant and I'm in that process. I think I was ignorant, to be honest. I think I just was in a world of like, and I just wish now that I could go back to myself and just, because that the moment when they said, just going to go and get the consultant, you're like, you know, everything. And obviously I'm very, very fortunate and I feel so blessed. And, you know, but yeah, I'm just so sorry.
No one prepares you for these words that come across from medical professionals, and it feels scary and it feels overwhelming when you're going through fertility treatment. I mean, I was being scanned regularly from 6 weeks anyway, so there's pluses and minuses to it. Obviously I'd had a very early miscarriage earlier on in the year, like I was 5.5 weeks, so super early loss, and then 3 failed rounds, and then the 5th round I got pregnant, and the baby seemed to be fine, growing fine. Every scan I had, they said it's okay, everything's looking okay. I even had a small bleed, which was also fine. And it was interesting because all I was worried about was, am I going to miscarry? It never entered my head in a million years that they would tell me there was something wrong with my baby. Never. So not that I was expecting it to happen, but it was within my awareness that I could go in and they could say, you've had a miscarriage. You know, the baby's heartbeat stopped beating a week ago, but you haven't bled, right? So I was aware of miscarriages. I was aware of miscarriages. I wasn't aware of all this other stuff in the middle. So it really was a shock, because even though I'd been going for scans every week or whatever it was, I just, because I remember asking, and then I said, can you just tell me the heart's beating? That's all I cared about. And she said, oh yeah, the heart was beating. She said, the heart's beating, the screen was up, my baby's arm kicking its arms and legs about. And I was like, and I cried with relief. I was like, oh God, everything's okay. And I looked at Gareth, I was like, it's all okay. And then her face changed. She was like, ugh. And I just went, and she went, oh, I can't not tell you what I can see. And she said, you know, your baby's poorly. The fluid at the back of the neck is over 6 millimeters, 6.5 millimeters. And there's fluid around the abdomen. There's, you know, markers in the fluid that indicate that it, you know, might be this syndrome or this syndrome. And that was just I hadn't prepared myself for that. And I don't think anyone can prepare themselves for a miscarriage or a missed miscarriage either. But I was certainly, it was in my field of awareness, but it wasn't, these things that happened to me were not in my field of awareness at all. Not one bit. So therefore it was a huge shock, even though I had, I mean, at one point I was being scanned twice a week, you know, in the first trimester. So it was a shock. And it was just, the worst part was the week between finding out that there was something wrong with our baby and that our baby had Edwards syndrome, and when I actually had to terminate my pregnancy, because I kept feeling more and more pregnant every day. I was still feeling really sick. I was exhausted. My pelvis was hurting. We had to get a plane to come home, and someone offered me one of the pregnancy seats, and I said no because I felt so guilty about taking the seat. And Gareth was saying, but Emma, you are pregnant and your pelvis is killing you. Sit down. And I just said, but I can't, can I? Because look what we're going to do. How can I take that seat? I felt like I didn't deserve the seat. It was just the weirdest thing. And having to go and buy maternity jeans because we were flying back from Dubai in, you know, end of October. So it was cold in England, but it was hot here. I didn't have any trousers that fitted me. So I had to go and buy maternity jeans to fly back, getting congratulated by the staff. I was like, oh my God, this is just the worst.
Oh, I know.
This is the pits. So
I can't imagine.
It was crappy. It was crappy time. And but yeah, so that's kind of what spurred me on to, I was already sharing openly about my pregnancy anyway because of our fertility journey. So I've just continued to share our journey as we go. So everything's been very open, and TFMR Mamas has just kind of been a natural progression, because I was getting so many people message me, because it's like the taboo within the taboo. It is the taboo of baby loss, because it has so much stigma attached to it, because some people think that it was your choice to end it, so therefore you don't really belong in the baby loss world. So there is a lot of stigma around TFMR, and like with mental health, I am determined to blow stigma out the water because I feel it has no place. And so TFMR Mamas was born, and there's over 500 of us all helping each other. It's incredible.
I know, it's incredible. And I've been on the Instagram page and read some of the stories. It's just all of what you're doing, and the openness, like I just want you to know the vulnerability that you share, and it is already helping so many people. But I just see it. It's just amazing. It is just amazing. And you should know that, although, like, you know, what you've experienced and what you're experiencing now, and going through on your fertility journey, and like I was saying to you before, I've really experienced, you know, IVF with friends, and I had no idea how in depth it was from the injections, not only from the mental side of things. It's just, it's a lot, isn't it? So for you to be sharing it, and, you know, for other people that are thinking about going on that journey and embarking on the journey, to understand what that process is, because I think sometimes it's just amazing to be able to see you, you know, to be so open and honest, and actually just be real with your emotions about how you're feeling through the whole process. As somebody that knows you, but I just know you're affecting and helping so many people, and are enriching their lives in ways that they would, if they didn't follow you or didn't hear your words, it wouldn't have touched their heart in that way. Do you know what I mean? I just really want you to know that, because it just,
thank you.
I feel so inspired by, and I feel like you're helping me as a human with my story, and, you know, starting this podcast, like, that's one of the reasons that I took the leap of faith, from seeing what you were doing the podcast, and just being really open about it. And it gives other people the space to be
I think
open.
It gives people permission to just, and it's important to know also that one of my messages is, I believe that real healing starts with sharing. And by that, I don't mean going public, right? It has to fit with your personality. But just life as a human being, we weren't meant to do it alone. Now, by that, I don't mean you have to go on social media and go, oh yeah, you know, and be totally open about everything. There's a difference between pretending and having privacy, right? And it's an important balance to kind of strike for yourself, depending on your personality and how that fits for you. But whether it's just with one person in a room where you go and get support in a support group or on a platform, just don't do life on your own. When life gets hard, all I'm saying is you don't have to do it on your own. Human beings weren't designed to live through hard things on their own. And that's the message that I'm really trying to get out there, is not to suddenly, you know, everyone has to go totally public because it's actually not right for everyone either.
No.
And
I agree.
The other part of it is that working through any shame that you hold is crucial before, you know, standing there and just shouting about your story, because the reality is there are online trolls. There are these people that have got far too much time to just be mean. And if you still carry shame about things, guess what? When that person who's a nobody pops in and says something mean, it will knock you for six. So I think Brené Brown talks about how if you choose to share your story, they need to have earned your trust for them to share your story with them. And that's really important. And part of it also is you doing your work to shed your shame around whatever it is. And when you get to that point, then guess what? No one can touch you. There's nothing anyone could say to me about anything that I share openly that's going to wound me.
No.
I know. And that's all I need. And that's taken me 10 years to get to that stage. And now it happens quicker for some people and whatever, but it depends what you're working through. But what I'm trying to say is you've got to just do what is right for you. So even in healing, copycat doesn't work. You know, you can't just copy someone else and get what they've got. It doesn't work like that, because we all come from different homes, different experiences, different traumas, different overwhelming things, just different. So we have to do what's right for us. And if you're going to share your story, and you have to have safety, you have to have trust with who you're sharing your story with, and you have to have worked through any shame that you hold about it. So starting off in a smaller arena, like for me, I didn't share these stories about, you know, domestic violence and being raped and sexually assaulted. I didn't share those stories for a long time publicly, 10, 20 years, because I had shame. I only got to the stage 2 years ago where I could turn around to myself and say, it wasn't your fault. You didn't deserve it. I'm sorry it happened to you, and mean it. It took me nearly 20 years to be able to say that to myself. Now, I certainly wasn't going to go telling the world about it before I could tell myself that.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So,
totally agree with that. Because for me, and with my, you know, it's 10 years ago that it's only just been recently that I've really been able to openly, and I probably haven't fully openly spoken about the kind of thoughts and you know, I felt so much shame around what I was thinking, like so much shame, but actually saying, you know, being open with that and more open with it, because I haven't fully, I think it is really helping me. And it's actually, so yeah, whatever space that's in, sorry, the dog's just walked in, if you hear the little footsteps, whatever space that's in, the big message, I think that we both share, like the way that you said it is such more eloquent than what I said. I was like, you just got to speaking up. It doesn't matter if it's in front of one person, 100 people, however many followers. That for me is the biggest, most empowering thing. A problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it?
And if you're sharing something for the first time and it is painful and it holds trauma for you, then you must make sure you're doing it in a safe space with someone that you can trust.
Absolutely.
And more often than not, it is with a professional person that can help you unpack it and help you to work through how you feel about it. And then, you know, the rest just comes bit by bit, and it will happen. You talk about things when you're ready and not before.
And it's the no judgment element, isn't it? That I think that you, with a professional, you know is there. It has to be there, you know? So, I mean, I did go to get to the person that I work with now, like, and I still have therapy. I think she's amazing. Ikela, I've mentioned her before, but for me, that was easier. A professional was easier to begin with, because you know that there can't be, and then once that happened, it's the process that sort of follows after that.
And also, you are not on autopilot to look after their feelings in any way. So that codependent piece isn't there.
Yeah. That is why it's so powerful. That is,
yeah, because when you are telling someone that you know that you love, you will always, doesn't matter what you do, you will be analysing to see if you need to take care of them while you're trying to share your pain.
Yeah.
Which is why therapy or a confidential peer support group is a great place, because guess what? The rules are we don't share outside a group. Therapists, the rules are the same. And these are strangers. And so therefore you're not worrying about looking after their feelings, because you haven't had years of getting to know what upsets them and what doesn't. And I need to change my language a little bit there to make sure I don't upset them. I need to adjust myself a little bit there to make sure that, it's not as heavy and maybe I don't burden them too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So therefore you can't really process properly all the time. You're kind of adjusting yourself around how somebody else, or trying to take care of someone else's feelings while you're trying to unpack your feelings. You're like trying to work two jobs there.
Yeah, so true. That is so true. I've not thought about it from that perspective, because someone, you're laying a burden on somebody that that is they can't not, and it's not a burden necessarily for them, but it's
you can't help it either.
You feel like it is, because you're sharing that experience. Yeah, it's interesting. That is, yeah.
And here's the thing, friends are not your therapists. They can never be your therapist.
Babe,
ever.
This recently has changed my life. That has changed my life. I was using friends as a crutch for my anything problems in relationships, like literally I'd get advice from about 10 different people. I'd be so confused by the end of it. I wouldn't even know what my own thoughts were. And then you're like, whoa, what should I do in this situation, or whatever the situation was. And the relief now, when I need it, I have consistent therapy. It's just the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Because it's me sharing, her guiding me, not telling me what I should do, but giving me guidance and hearing me.
Yeah. And letting you unpack. They let you unpack your own stuff.
Whereas
they don't try and unpack it for you.
Yeah. Whereas, absolutely.
And that's the difference. So your friend will try and unpack it for you. You'll try and steer it so they don't have to do too much lifting. It doesn't actually work. Yeah,
no, you're right. So that's why in the UK, like therapy in America, oh my God, it's just like everyone, it's like, everyone does it. It's like, but in the UK, that is something that I feel like still needs to, be spoken about so much more, is in the sense that it's okay to have therapy. It's okay to go see someone. It doesn't mean that you're bonkers for doing that. Well, I was bonkers when I needed it, so I wish I'd have had it before, because I might not have got bonkers.
But the thing is, it's the same thought process about medication. If I can't fix this on my own, I'm a failure. So if I need to have medication to help me fix my mind, which I've been told subconsciously that I should be able to fix myself, then that must mean I'm failing. If I need to go to a therapist to fix how I feel, that means that I'm failing. And they have a very similar kind of viewpoint from lots of people. But we get taught how to tie our shoes, we get taught how to do ABC 1 2 3. No one teaches us emotional awareness, no one teaches us conflict resolution, no one teaches us how to deal with overwhelm, no one teaches us how to process properly. Who teaches us that? So why would we have the skills to do it unless we go to someone who's been trained to help us do it? In the same way, you're not going to learn maths by sitting there just playing in the sand. You're going to need a maths teacher.
Yeah.
If your car's broken, you're not going to take it to the hairdresser and say, can you fix my car?
Yeah, it's so
You're going to take it to the mechanic. Let's just start taking the right pieces of our problems to the right people. It's simple, really.
Yeah, so true. Oh my gosh, I could literally talk to you all day. I think we could do like should we do like a marathon, a 24-hour podcast that keeps on running? I think me and you are like, we're up for the challenge. We could definitely do it.
I think if anyone could do it, you and I could do it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a thing. We're on 2 different time zones.
It's true.
We're on 2 different time zones. We might need someone else the other end. So I'm just going to go sleep for a bit. I'll be back in a second.
We just need someone in Australia and someone in the US. We could literally do a baton podcast.
Oh my God, it's so good.
A relay.
Have you heard of Clubhouse?
Yes,
it's basically like,
I'm on it.
Oh, you are? Right, me too. It's basically like a Clubhouse room that stays open for 24 hours. You're like, the person that started it had no idea that was going to happen. But thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, it's an absolute honour to have you. And I am just so grateful. So thank you. Make sure you go follow Emma at Emma K. Belle.
If you have had a termination for medical reasons, then come and find us in TFMR Mamas, and you will find over 500 women who know exactly what you're going through. And you're not alone. You don't have to walk through it alone, right? Yeah. So thank you so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
And congratulations on the podcast.
Thank you. Well, you're one of my inspirations that made me just take the ball by the horns and just go for it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, my love. I am so grateful. Speak to you soon.